Welcome, everybody. Wonderful to have everybody here today for a good old classic boxing match. Little bit of old school, little bit of new school, everything coming this way, and very excited for all of you to join us. As we look to kick off, I'll take introductions first. My name is Zach Blakely. I'm one of the co-founders at Foundation Sales Consulting, where we help organizations get to their next stage of growth. And I'm pleased to have one of my co-founders here with me, Ari. If you could take a moment to say hi to everybody and give them a little bit of a background, Ari, on what you want to talk about today, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me over here today. Again, my name's Ari Barmapov. I'm one of the co-founders at Foundations. Give you the foundations to build your revenue engine, propel your passion. So for today, I'd love to talk about and discuss how some of the old school fundamentals when I was growing up way back when, a billion years ago, when the dinosaurs roamed the planet, what the foundations were like for building a proper sales structure and building an outbound cadence to reach out to prospects, and how those different methods and those different tactics, they haven't gone out of style. I mean, it's like whiskey or alcohol, what have you. It's older is better. Older is better.
Oof, interesting.
This
I know.
This is why Pepsi bought Poppy for $2 billion. Okay. Okay.
and the first jabs come out. Wonderful. And super excited to have Jarrod here. Many of you knew Jarrod, very successful in building out his LinkedIn community and sharing so much knowledge with all of us to use on a day-to-day basis. Welcome, Jarrod. Super happy to hear what you want to talk about today. So introduce to those that don't know you, which may be few, what you want to chat about today.
So those who don't know me, I'm Jarrod. I am incredibly passionate about sales and about utilizing platforms like LinkedIn in order to reach your customers in new and effective ways. So my thing that I want to get across to everyone today is that if you aren't sending video messages out to your clients, to your prospects in the most genuine way, you aren't building a true network. And take it from me, I may know what I'm talking about. I've sent 8,000 personalized videos on LinkedIn and I have a 30% response rate. Like, that's not AI assisted. That is 100% organic. And I honestly think new school is really the better way. So, I mean, Ari could talk all he wants. And by the way, folks, I'm the one in yellow. I know Ari and I resemble, but that's where the similarities end.
Oh,
all right.
Whoa. Well, I know today is going to already be a lot of fun based off of the way that we've kicked that off. I know both of you guys love to spar. You guys love to sit in these rings and have these conversations. And you spend a lot of time working with founders all across the world and how they can think about having these conversations, not only with their peers, but also with their teams as well. And so very excited to jump into this. So I think a perfect first question as we get ready to rumble is, Jarrod, how is the new school actually wrong and the old school is absolutely the best way to go? Just kidding. Not to introduce my bias, but would love to see this kicked off.
This is why I brought my buddy Godzilla with me, because I know it was a 2-on-1. This just goes to show how much effort you need just to defeat old school, new school. Oof. You have to literally get two people to defeat one of us.
And one of them has to be a mythic being.
No.
Wonderful.
I'm going to enjoy this.
So, Jarrod, I'd love for you to kick us off. And you know, we always like to spar and joke and joust about these things, but we know that really both the old school and the new school, very complementary to each other. And I would love knowing that you have all of those fundamentals, how you've used them in the new school, and the value that a lot of organizations can benefit from the approaches that you train and you teach on LinkedIn.
The number one thing I would say is the reason why I believe so much in the new school is because of how few persons are using it. So it literally allows you to be recognized almost instantly. Like, think about it as if you are an artist performing on a stage. Everybody's attention is on you because there's nowhere else to look. And I think that's why I'm so attracted to doing things in new school way. And I honestly think this is why more people need to try, because even though our goal is to get more people to try it, it's still so few people doing it. It's not like you're going to enter into a crowded market. You're going to enter into a space where you're actually valued. So for me, that's why I think the new school method is a great thing. The only thing I would say that old school has ever taught you that you could transfer into these new skills is the tonality of your voice and understanding how to provide that inflection. Because whether it's through a voice message or video message, that core training really helps. But again, that's where it ends. Because after that,
So
that's where
Jarrod,
the technology takes over. Yes.
tell me, when you're sending a video message, what are the things that you're actually saying? Because it sounds like you're crafting a proper, compelling message. It sounds like you're speaking to the person's pains. It sounds like the way that you're going about it is very old school. And to
No.
say that it has nothing to do with what old school people have done before, it's kind of misleading there.
It is absolutely not misleading, because you see, the thing is, number one, the medium that we utilize in it is, first of all, the easiest method, because through platforms like LinkedIn, I have direct access to the CEOs. Because of the technology that's available now, these CEOs could block your number. These CEOs can immediately tell if it's a spam number that's calling them. So you don't even get the chance to do the introduction. Whereas with LinkedIn, I get that opportunity where I can actually send the individual a quick introduction video that is not even spammy or sales related, but it gets the conversation going. And I think that's where I look at it most. It's literally to get the conversation going, whereas sometimes with a cold call, it's really just to immediately talk about the product. So I would say there are differences.
Very interesting. And I love the way that you guys are both positioning this, because we know that, you know, those fundamentals are imperative, whichever medium that you reach out through. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier, Jarrod, we couldn't agree more. Ari's been building his social network for years now, and you have as well. And so many people on LinkedIn every day are talking about the value that's being driven through social growth and through your ability to build these large audiences. One of the things that we always love as a frame is we look at our impressions. Sometimes we go, oh, I only got 1,000 impressions. But when you think about how hard it would be to ever be in front of 1,000 people and how seriously you would take that, how incredible that is, right? But we've heard about this for so long. Ari, when did you first start hearing about the value of LinkedIn? That was how many years ago now?
I started hearing about the value of LinkedIn, I would say about 5 years ago, give or take, where we started seeing some of the more impactful sales influencers start to make an impact. And I say sales influencers because I find that social media is very similar along pretty much every single aspect of life. You think of Instagram and you see Instagram models and they appear and they front facing, they look to have a very appealing life about them. But you peek behind the curtains and it's a facade and it's a show. And Jarrod, and I'm not saying this is you by any means, but I've seen other sales influencers have a facade that they show that isn't a proper representation of their knowledge and what they're contributing.
But even with that in mind, you know, a lot of people's success is built on the back of such a powerful platform like LinkedIn. And to your point, we learned about these things, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. This was coming. People are using this as a very valuable channel. Jarrod, why do you feel, with all of this information available, with all of the case studies available, with people like yourself, our team as well at Foundations having, you know, over 30,000 followers collected between us and all of those other, why do you feel people are so reluctant to adopt this channel and are so reluctant to be able to jump in and use social, as you say? And we still find that even though LinkedIn is 10 years into its growth period and everybody's using it, you can still find yourself as that solo artist on stage, and there's still so much room for that. Why do you feel people aren't adopting this? And what sort of things do you think you could give as advice to help people just get started and start going down this path of building out a social network and a community online?
So and that's an excellent question. So let me break it down this way. A lot of people are okay with the comfort zone, which is, I am a master at this. I do not want to go into something new because then I'll be a novice. And ego-wise, I don't want to be a novice because I have spent all this time becoming the email maestro. I've spent all this time becoming the cold warrior champion. I'm not going into a new field where all of a sudden my numbers get impacted and then that bruises my ego. So you know what? I'm going to stay where I'm comfortable. And I think that's where the risk factor comes in. And the similar comparison I'll draw is for persons just to get an understanding that You could be in the gym for years, but you could honestly just be doing it wrong. And you're not hiring a trainer, or you're seeing new equipment coming to the gym, but there's these 3 pieces of equipment. You stick to that. Like, no, like, these other pieces of equipment will get you to your goal faster, will allow you to do it in a more efficient manner, yet we stay away from it. So here's the thing that a lot of them do. The persons that are with this mindset also purposely avoid looking at the statistics. So their numbers may be starting to get impacted. So their call outreach isn't working as much. They're not getting in direct contact with as many decision makers. The numbers are falling, but they are just putting a blind eye. They're putting blinders on and only focusing on 1 or 2 of the key numbers that are still performing well. So my thing to everybody is, I am not saying you need to go into this 100%. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is, let's give it 10%. As in, every 10 calls, 1 of those 10 calls should be a modern outreach, as in send a video to somebody on LinkedIn and see how that works, especially if it's your ideal client. Because I want you to understand this. When I speak to CEOs, when I talk to people who have received my messages, there are very small instances where persons say, I don't want to get a video message. But there are other instances, and this is where the CEOs tell me, number 1, I've not gotten a video message from anyone on LinkedIn, right? And number 2, I've not gotten messages from anyone at all on LinkedIn. So think about that niche of a niche that you're going to operate in that is going to allow you to stand out. And I think that's what you need to start realizing. I don't want you to completely abandon what has allowed you to build where you are, but we know the saying, what got you to where you are isn't going to get you where you need to be. And we understand what's changing in sales. We've seen what's coming. And if you think your little cold calling bunker is going to save you.
Yeah. And I think you exposed an amazing point there, Jarrod. I could not agree more. I think there's some things that I love that you'd said very clear, which is the fact that when you make that connection, you send that video message, you know it's going to land in that person's inbox. And if especially you're speaking to a CEO or a founder or somebody at a larger organization, getting in any of their other inboxes is going to be one of the most clouded and difficult things to go through, especially when you think about spam filters, security functionalities, and all of these other things that are increasing. And the same that you can see on the phone. Now, want to position this back over to Ari. You do this all the time. You teach our organizations how to get to that next step, that next stage, as we say, which is when you really start deeply investing in social media. But to get to that point and get to some of these new age tactics, you really have to build those fundamentals early on, which even though cold calling, even though emailing, even though some of those other things are different than they were in 2016, 2017, they're fundamental in your ability to understand how to navigate social media properly. And also, one of the things that I love that you talk about, and I'd love for you to share with our audience, is what you find you gain early stages through the feedback loop of some of those traditional channels that help you really bolster that next new school growth that we're talking about, and what Jarrod's putting an emphasis on here, because I completely agree.
Absolutely. So Jarrod, you speak a lot about LinkedIn, that you can just send anybody a message, and that with calls they could just block you. But for LinkedIn, you actually need to send an invite first. They need to accept your invite, and then you can send a video message. If they never send your invite, you can't send that video message. You can't send that audio message. Whereas you can always get a new number to call that person on the phone again. For social media, it's very easy to ignore the person on the other end. If you send a message, video, audio, or what have you, you could simply hit delete and not respond. That feedback loop is much more difficult to get when it comes to social media outreach than phone calls. Yes, it's true that your phone connects are fewer and far between. But what I love about dialing and getting people on the phone is forces the other person to confront your message head on. And I look at it like a marketing funnel, that when you have a marketing funnel, you could see exactly along the process where it's dropping off. And it's the same with a cold call. You could see, well, are people dropping off on my intro? Are they dropping off on my hook? Are they dropping off on my call to action? What are the specific sections about my message that's not resonating with the people on the other end? And you get immediate feedback that you could then use to course correct and adjust as you're calling people on the phones. like I was mentioning earlier, when it comes to crafting your message, those old school fundamentals that you have in building a compelling and viable message that's going to resonate deeply with your target audience is something that you need to have those fundamentals before you even start to do any type of social outreach. Because at the end of the day, if your message isn't going to resonate with the person on the other end, it doesn't matter if you're sending a video, audio, text, what have you. You're not going to get a good reception.
Yeah. And I really like the frame around A/B testing. When we send a video and when we send a message and an audio, if somebody doesn't respond, it's very hard for us to understand, was it how I spoke? Was it what I said? Was it, my call to action? What specifically was it about? And all I'm left with is a lack of response, right? Or if somebody does respond, sometimes it can be difficult to understand what specifically worked for them that got them to actually respond. Where in cold calling, one of the things we learn very quickly, especially when we're onboarding our reps, is, hey, your conversations never really last longer than 20 seconds. That's likely because your intro's drawn out too long, or maybe you don't have the right tonality to excite the person on the other end. And then some other situations, we get down to a position where we understand our ability to handle objections and understand the actual acumen behind that individual and what they're looking to hear and how we can position our product. We can get feedback at those different stages, and then we can use that to enhance email, social, all of those other components, because we're getting so close to our ICP. So I think that there's a lot of a very strong value in there that I think we've all leveraged. Because I know, Jarrod, one of the reasons why you're so successful in social media is because you have such strong sales fundamentals. So when we think about being successful on social and leveraging those fundamentals that Ari was talking about, what of those major things do you think are super foundational for you to be able to do in your messages when crafting an audio message or a video message? And how would you help someone think of the framework that's required to get there, leveraging maybe some of those downstream activities that we use through other channels that I know you speak very highly of as well?
My number one thing I always tell people is that if it is that you're crafting a message, your number one goal is to get the customer to respond. So I measure different metrics in terms of what's the success of a message. So yes, people don't respond just like a cold call, just like an email. So for me, a no response has some other factors and nuance it. But again, there are follow-up techniques that you could do that gets a prompt out to the customer, which is a simple follow-up text to say, not spam, but just inquiring about, and you highlight the particular thing. So there are different ways that you can use it to create the follow-up, and then those allow you to understand the metrics that allow you to adjust your message and also test out new things, which again, for me, is A/B split testing. The most effective thing I would tell everyone to do is when you're crafting a message, which to me is absolutely important, is I begin with the person's name. Like, I think this is one of the, like, when you do a cold call, there's always a slight difference in terms of when the person says, hi, good day, or you introduce yourself. But on a video message from me, especially through LinkedIn, immediately the person hears me say, hey, Ari, hey, Zach. Like, immediately there's a quick introduction because I could see you. I know who you are. You've already connected with me, so you understand what I do because my profile is optimized. So that's almost my warm introduction happening for them to understand if they want to accept the message or not. So I take all of these nuances into consideration in terms of, is my message going to be successful? But if you begin with the person's name and you immediately just state like the value that you want to provide for them or the reason why you're reaching out, which is important for them, then you're going to have a higher success rate versus doing the horrible method of, and again, this applies if you don't understand cold calling fundamentals, which is, hi, Ari, my name is Jarrod, and I'm calling from X and Y organization. We help companies do X and Y and this, and that's my reason for reaching out so we could book a meeting. That's going to get you zero response.
Great,
However, if I begin my video by saying, hey, Ari, I was just looking at your recent podcast, Across That Whistle, and, I had a question to ask you guys about this aspect of the business because I noticed from just my research with companies, this is an area I see most persons not getting it effective. And I noticed that it's not as consistent as companies who already have it in place. Is that something you're open to seeing some information about that could help you guys? No commitment. It's just to make sure that we can help you. And that's a message that takes you 15 seconds to do. And to me, if you understand that framework of immediately getting their attention with their name, because it's almost like us walking down the street. If somebody shouts Zach, you're going to turn around. You're going to get their attention because it immediately starts about them. Like that, I think is it's such a sprinkle of salt, but it's like the most important ingredient that makes a difference. that when you begin with that and then you continue adding value, it's like the best chocolate cake ever on top of the best icing ever with the best sprinkles ever, coupled by the best drink ever. Like you just keep adding value throughout the entire process.
I'm more of a savory guy, Jarrod. So.
Yeah. And the tip I would give everybody is the less you speak about yourself, the better you're going to have a response rate from the customer. Because this is what persons don't realize. It's obvious and this is the benefit for us. It's obvious the message is about me. The message is from me. You've seen my profile. I don't need to talk that much about me. I need to talk about you and show you that I know who you are. And that's how I get my success.
I love you talking about that. Just wanted to quickly absorb something from that I thought was great. I think first off, using the name is super, super important because especially when you're sending videos, some people get confused when you're doing personalized outreach, you try and do it at volume. So I'm going to record this video about me, and then I'm going to send it to everybody. And the reality is that's not going to get strong response. I know, and we know, Ari and I have all, and our other co-founder, Elliot, has also received very strong messages from people where right off the bat, they use your name, right off the bat, they're talking about you. And we know in a video that that's not something, until AI continues down this path a little bit further, that's something that has to be researched properly. It's effectively well prepared, and it's disarming because the person on the other side knows you sent that message specifically to them. And then when you start talking about their company and some of the other things that you've seen, there's no way to hide around that. And I think that's something super, super important that you chat about. And I know that leverages some really strong fundamentals.
And let me add one more thing to it though. And I think this is why the modern aspect works better. So it adds a trifecta of, it creates a trifecta. Number one, you see me, which is important. You hear the tone of my voice, which yes, you get on a cold call, but you also pay attention differently to the words. If you on a cold call, you only have 2 levels of senses being interacted with. When you actually have a video sent to the individual, that's more senses being engaged. That's more emotion being applied to the individual. And that's why for me, it is a way more modern way. Like the only other better way is if you met that person in person, right? But other than that, the fact that I'm able to send that video and that person could hear me speak, which again, they could tell, okay, I'll look at this twice because, all right, it doesn't look like it's an AI generated video. The person mentioned something relevant. They're speaking about a pain, and I understand what is the possible next steps. I honestly think you create a great trifecta, and that is way better and a much stronger impact than if it is that you had just a simple cold call, because again, it's just your voice you're really putting across.
I agree. And I think that one of the things that Ari is going to love to talk about and what we think is that it's this imperative blend, right? Because the reality is that we also know there's some simple marketing things that we've heard, like the rule of 7. Right? Are we familiar with the rule of 7, that story, why people put lawn signs out front when they're working? Because the idea is that it doesn't take the first time. It doesn't take the second time. It doesn't take the third time. It actually takes upwards of 7 times before people will recognize you, appreciate your brand, and have enough credibility and interest that they may reach out. So we know that we have to catch them through multiple methods. And how Ari thinks about building a lot of our business development campaigns is trying to identify the medium in which people communicate in. Because there's a lot of people on LinkedIn. We see them all the time. I have friends that say, hey, Zach, I loved your post today. That's very funny. You didn't like it. You didn't comment. You didn't do anything. You're a lurker, right? And we're all kind of laughing about that. But the idea is not everybody's super comfortable to engage on social media. And in some industries, social media doesn't totally exist either. There's, when you think about working in some hospitality and different areas like that, they don't leverage social media the same way that tech bros and founders do in other industries and other applications. So Ari, talk to us a little bit about how you take those skills that I think Jarrod's chatting about on the LinkedIn side, and you apply those through some different mediums to help make that cold call less cold, make that cold email less cold, leveraging the success that you have in some of these new school tactics.
Absolutely. So Jarrod, just a couple of things from what you said that I completely agree with. The way that you use their name is a great way to warm them up significantly. And the way that you approach video messaging is a lot easier to train and teach somebody versus a cold call. Because when you're on a cold call, you need to have such a mastery of your voice, tonality, inflection, pacing, to be able to draw the person in and get them to a point that they're going to want to respond to you. And it's more than just using their name. It's the way that you're doing the intro, your way that you're making yourself sound less like a salesperson and more someone who's curious, more someone who they might know or they might not know, they're not sure, and it's going to get you to the next point. A cold call is all about earning the right to say the next sentence in the conversation. And you need to earn that way every single line. And that's very difficult to do. And further to that, it's very difficult to train. It's not something that you could teach off of a LinkedIn course or read about. It's something that you need to practice day in, day out, and get really, really good at it. One of the things that you said before, that people don't like doing things that are new, and I'll extend it a little bit more. People don't like doing things that are hard.
Mm-hmm.
And cold calling is very, very hard.
Which is why you have to do modern. Because it's easier.
Because easier is always the way to go, right?
Yeah.
Well, not easier. I'm just saying efficient, because here's the point I wrote down.
No, you said easier. You didn't say efficient. Easier. You said easier.
I meant efficient, but here's the point. Here's the point I just wrote down. When you're on a cold call, the objections are immediate, so it's more faster. It's faster, so it's coming at you all the time because objections are layered. But here's the beauty: when it is that you're utilizing video and other social selling methods, you actually have a delayed objection response, because the person actually has to listen to the entire message before they respond. So even if you get the response of not interested, at least you have given the delivery of what the value is, and now you can assess the objection differently. Versus where if you're on a cold call, somebody could just say, now's not a good time, not interested, and they could just absolutely hang up on you. To an extent, on social selling with video messaging, you could still continue the conversation. Whereas if you're hung up on a cold call, that's almost the end of it.
Interesting.
It's interesting over here, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that, because I think with social media, it's the person on the other end might not even listen to your message. They can simply delete your message, not listen to it, and just completely put it away, and even block you altogether for going and sending them a message because they don't like being solicited. And to say that, just because on a cold call somebody can hang up and that's why it's not effective, it can be the exact same thing for social selling. Okay. You can have someone who's not interested and just completely shut you out.
But the bonus is, in this case, I get more of I get my entire message delivered. If you're cold calling, your message could be completely cut off from the moment you say, "Hi, this is Ari." Click.
And that's assuming that they listen to your message and don't just delete the chat.
I would love to throw something into the ring here, if you guys would allow me. Yes. One of the things that I think is really interesting about cold calling, as well as with email, we all know email's in a bit of a dark place right now. But the reality is that one of the things we love about cold calling is it's actually easier to do a level of personalization while also maintaining a substantial amount of volume to which you can learn very quickly. So I would agree. I think you're both saying something that's super important. People don't have to listen to us. When we reach out on a cold call, we reach out on a cold email, even if you see somebody in person, they do not have to listen to you. But the benefit of being able to do outreach at scale, say as an example through a power dialer, when you're an early stage organization and you're like, listen, I'm really trying to test product market fit, trying to get as much feedback as possible. I'm trying to make sure I can speak to as many possible customers as there are. Your approach should be a little bit different because you're not in a position to maybe pitch as hard and you're not able to do as much strategic campaigning, but you're able to make thousands of calls. And we're all brought here by a partner that does an amazing job doing this with all of their clients, and that's Whistle. We all love working with Whistle and the amazing team that's there. And they put a lot of emphasis on that cold calling component and a lot of industries. And the reason why is because they use that volume up front to learn quickly and effectively and iterate and optimize to the point where then once they get through that, to your point, Jarrod, I think then you're allowed to get more strategic. You can make a stronger video message. You can make a stronger audio clip. You can do those different things. And so early days, what a lot of organizations want to do is they want to lean on, what we see, and we personally hate this, are the consultants out there that say, hey, we're going to send 20,000 emails a week for you, and we're going to blah, 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 and we're going to learn through that. And we're like, listen, this isn't you're trying to put volume way ahead of feedback, and you can do that as effectively in email as you can with cold calling. And just quickly as an anecdote and a story for one that we love, we had a partner that we were reaching out. We were really trying to get a hold of this, actually a prospect story. We were really trying to get a hold of, reach out to all the decision makers in the same 3 ways. Sent them an email, gave them a cold call, and sent them a LinkedIn message. One came back to us through LinkedIn. One responded via call, called us back, and the other one responded to an email. All at the same organization, all of the same seniority, all the personas we were going after. So everybody has different mediums, and your ability to be optimized in each of those mediums can start with learning really quick. So you have to think, are you in a position where you can start doing those more advanced tactics before you have the basics and fundamentals? And I think, Jarrod, you use those a lot.
I use it a lot because I strongly believe a lot of those decision makers prefer those mediums. So remember, this is the essence of why I think modern selling works, because so many of these people are getting these power dialers reaching out to them, these emails and everything. They have become numb, as in they have become experts in learning how to reject it and put any things in place to block it. But at least on the modern side of using social, LinkedIn or any other platform, at least I have other things of my personal brand is being introduced to them because they've accepted a connection request. They may have seen a piece of content. So that video introduction to them becomes a lot easier to accept versus actually just doing a cold call and having to work and build that trust and everything on a cold call. Whereas my video would have just been probably stage 2 because the stage 1 would have been my presence already that's online, that the person saw and accepted the connection and the meeting request. Like that is a key thing we don't consider. Like the modern way allows me to do a warm introduction to the customer without even saying a word. And then the video, as you said, in the earlier stages of being a sales influencer, adds the concrete aspects of it now to show that, oh, this person is actually what they say and who they say they are. That's what I'm actually seeing. So for me, I understand all these things, yes, but I genuinely think when you look at the advantage that you have, especially when I think about the buyer and what they prefer, as they say, the different mediums, I'm not only, yes, I understand they have a preference, but I'm also looking at what they're being bombarded with. And again, on the modern side, there's very little of it. So I would want to go where I could be a pattern interrupt. And I think that's where you're going to get it because everybody's doing the same pattern interrupt on a cold call. You mind if I get 30 seconds so I could tell you the reason for my call and all these other things? I don't have to go through all of those things when I utilize a modern selling technique. I could get my entire message across to the customer before getting an objection.
Yeah,
which
like
means I can even layer my objection in the video that I'm sending out to them. It's
100%.
So much easier.
You know, Jarrod, I'm really happy that you brought up your personal brand and the fact that it was such a huge component of social selling and sending videos. Because I think that's something that is a double-edged sword there. Earlier on, you were stating that you have a 30% conversion rate from video message to a meeting. You're talking about how your LinkedIn profile is set up and optimized perfectly for attracting the right people. You talk about how your personal brand is a pseudo warm intro to the person as they accept your invite. Now take a person with 500 connections, a suboptimal LinkedIn presence, who is trying to connect with people and sending a video message. I guarantee that they are not going to have a 30% conversion rate from video message to meeting when they have that type of a presence. The type of presence that you have, Jarrod, takes a lot of time to develop. It takes a significant amount of time to build that trust with your community, build that trust to create that image for yourself, to be able to get to a point that you can get that 30% conversion rate off of a video message, as opposed to a cold call. When somebody is getting on the phone, talking to somebody, it's all about your skills versus the other person. You do not need a personal brand. You do not need even a company to be able to convince somebody on the other side of the phone to take a meeting with you if you have the skill set that you've developed in order to do that. Anybody can pick up a phone and do that immediately if they have the skill set.
Right. So the same skill set that you're mentioning is the skill set of how you craft a LinkedIn profile and even have your presence showing. So it goes both ways. A cold call could suck because the person doesn't have the skill set. Your LinkedIn outreach could suck because you don't have the presence, you don't have an optimized profile. And by the way, because of how powerful and how fast LinkedIn is moving, you could build your presence on LinkedIn ridiculously easy now within 30 days. Let's just say, even if I start day one and at least I have an optimized profile, the optimized profile is doing the introductions for me, and I could still drop 3 videos within the space of 24 hours on my profile, or pieces of content that just shows that I'm posting and talking about stuff relevant to the person I'm reaching out to. So when they click my profile, there's context. So it's the same skill set. If you don't have the skill set for cold calling, it's going to suck. If you don't have the skill set for building your LinkedIn profile, it's going to suck. So the key thing is if you have the skill set, it can work. I just think that with the modern selling, you can actually get good quickly, because you can flip that switch overnight in terms of getting an optimized profile. Whereas if you need to do cold calling, that takes multiple repetitions, like multiple. Whereas if you have an optimized profile, you can just do some simple outreach to customers that could work with text, with voice, with video, and then that gets you across a little bit faster than utilizing the traditional methods.
And I think you raised some really good points there. I think both of you are saying things that are extremely imperative. And again, falling back to this, I think one of the biggest things is that organizations, founders out there, salespeople that are listening to this, the reality is, if you want to grow quickly, you can't do just one of these things at all. You need to have an optimized profile. You need to be sending out video messages to your ICP. You need to be loading those contacts into lists and reaching out to them and practicing your cold calling. Because to the same point that Jarrod made earlier, to kind of flip this around, how you got here isn't getting you to the next stage. So even if you grow just through LinkedIn, there's been a lot of founders out there that have done a really good job positioning their product specifically through LinkedIn. But then when they actually go to building a sales team, an AE reaching out, an account exec, a BDR reaching out is very different than somebody who owns an agency, somebody who has the opportunity to build a big brand, who has that brand behind them and is speaking to an executive audience. And what you can run into is, if you've built a great brand for yourself, it becomes unscalable in some situations for your team, and you can become a bit of a bottleneck in your ability to actually scale out. So the result is what you need to do is, yes, as a founder, you need to be on LinkedIn. You need to be trying to find your customers. You need to be trying to build a social presence and a brand behind you, recognizing that it is one of the cheapest and most effective ways to do that, that just requires your effort and your time. However, when you start growing out of founder-led sales and you start bringing in junior associates and junior salespeople who ultimately don't have all those skills, you need to be able to put them in a position where they can chase down their ICP in many different avenues and through many different channels, because that's going to be more scalable down to your propensity and your ability to grow than it is if everything is bottlenecked through the founder's ability to generate interest through social. Now, I wanted to quickly take a little bit different pace here. Let's talk a bit about how, when you're an early stage team, you're building this out, you're trying to get your go-to-market motions going. I know that we believe, and I'm very happy for us to believe, on different sides. One, you should start with social. The other one, we believe you should start with some more traditional methods and learn while also building your social. How do you think about using these channels together? How do you think about multi-threading accounts? How do you think about surrounding audiences, recognizing that really we're pulling hairs here, because all of the things that we're chatting about are best practices and things you have to be doing. So Ari, I'd love to give you the floor to start with that in the beginning. How do you think about combining these methods so that you can get the value of each of them, learning at volume while also operating at scale?
Absolutely. There's not a single outbound sequence that I've built and developed that recommends only doing cold calling in a vacuum and nothing else. As you had said, Zach, earlier in the conversation, there are people who are going to respond better to LinkedIn. There's going to be people who respond better to email, and there's going to be people who respond better to phone calls. And if I were to recommend only doing a call forward campaign, I would be shooting myself in the foot and skipping out on 67 to 80% of the market, just based on purely only doing calling. It's something that's a necessity in today's economic framework to build something with all three in mind, and have that framework in mind when building it. You can't have just one.
Yeah,
and you need to have them all point to each other.
Yes.
So when you're making a
all
call,
these activities to funnel into the same sort of outcomes, realizing that you know, Jarrod, if you left somebody a voicemail and said, hey, you know, I'm going to send you over a video here in a second. I know we're connected on LinkedIn, and you send that, that video becomes even more warm, just enhanced by another channel. And we often think about this with email now. We don't think about email as the conversion channel. We think about email as the marketing channel that allows our other more powerful conversion methods to continue to be enhanced. So, Jarrod, how do you think about it? I know you love social media and you push a lot through that, but how do you think about teaching teams that ultimately could use multi-threaded approaches to reach out, and how they can use those things in conjunction to get the best value of each?
Yeah, and for every
I guess the internet connection made
I'll
it.
give you a simple example. There are people like myself. Oh, Ari's there. Ari gave up. Ari gave up, folks. You see it. He gave up. He gave up.
Jarrod, it was the opposite, my friend. You disappeared. You choked. You choked in the moment. Okay, you were not ready to rumble.
It's true.
Internet is always the winner.
Yeah, sadly, like technology is the winner. But so oh god, I forgot.
Oh, he's flustered now, folks. He's flustered. He's up against the ropes. He's up against the ropes.
So here's my theory behind it. You should absolutely be using all the channels that are relevant to your customer. So like I'll give you some real base scenarios. Myself and Ari and you, Zach, we might be on LinkedIn every single day. I know for a fact there are CEOs who log into LinkedIn maybe once a month, if so much. So you may not simply get a response because those persons don't use that as their main channel. However, if you pick up the phone and call, they would answer. If you send an email, they would see it. So my thing for everybody listening is that let's take the advice from financial gurus. Where you have 7 income streams, you must have 7 sales outreach streams. You cannot be reliant on one. So in other words, and it must be multi-layered. So in other words, if you understand who your ideal clients are, if you understand the communication style that's most likely to get your ideal client to respond, then that should be part of the strategy that you're using in terms of your outreach. Because if you're not using the right method, then you're basically going to get a 0 out of 0 response. So for example, if your client never responds to cold calls, they're not going to answer your cold call. If they never respond to LinkedIn messages, you're never going to get an answer to the LinkedIn message. However, it still doesn't mean that you don't throw the punch, because your goal is to still test and see if it registers. That's my main thing. So my goal for everybody is you have to use a multi-layered approach. I just think now the modern selling technique and social selling is the strongest jab you could throw for most of your customers that you want to reach out to.
Absolutely. I think of it as a bit of a digital billboard, right? It shows your professionalism. It shows all those other things. People get familiar with brands, but sometimes they need to see the billboard that explains to them why it's valuable, why it's important. And it also gives something that we love about social media, and especially when we think about creating content, is that it gives people an opportunity to follow you, follow your journey, see how people engage with you, and you get an opportunity to really give value. This is one of the things that about cold calling and emailing, Ari and I always talk about, that misses sometimes, is we love to lead with value. That's one of our main fundamentals, is how can we help somebody? How can we give them the skills that they can actually start getting benefits from just following us, just being around us, just seeing us? That is really, really important, where we can make an impact. Because we know if they can learn from us in the beginning and we can provide value, they're going to be more and more open to the things that we might call them to do later on in engaging with us. And I think you do a really, really good job of sharing that value up front and making people familiar with your style, which is something you cannot do through cold outreach.
That's why I love it so much. Like, think about it. Again, because of the bad sales practices that have been out there, again, our buyers feel overwhelmed and they've become numb. I don't want to force someone to buy. I want to make sure that through modern techniques, when I make the outreach, it's never cold. It's always because they saw something that made a trigger for me to say, let's send them an outreach, whether it's voice or video. And because they've already seen something about me, they skimmed my profile, they watched a video for 10 seconds, I can add context to that and win. Where I think it's a little bit more difficult to do that on cold call, to build the trust and everything. I think, as you said it earlier, I see stuff 7 times. Like, I know you're looking at stuff, you're not engaging, but My goal is that the minute I send that outreach to you, my guesstimate is going to be you have seen something at least more than 3 times from me. That's going to make my outreach even more acceptable. So again, if I have the right message, and again, it's not pitchy and I'm able to create the relevance and pain, I think I have a higher winning percentage versus a cold outreach.
I think that's awesome. And I think that's also a fantastic place to invite some of our audience and some of the people that are watching and listening to pose some questions to these experts and ask, what sort of things, when you hear this, does it spur and does it prompt? We'd love to handle some of those before we talk about some of the exciting things that we have to offer those that have joined us today towards the end of this call. So anybody who's listening, no question is silly. You're all along a different journey. So feel free to ask that. And if you want us both to handle it, please state that. Or if you'd like somebody specifically to give you a little bit more knowledge, let's do that. Let's try and respond succinctly so we can make sure that we can get through as many questions as possible for our audience and leave a little bit of time for us to speak about how we can help them and provide even more value than we have today already moving after this call. Mm-hmm. Are there any questions available? I know boxers can be intimidating. I know it can be scary, especially when you're sitting watching these guys go toe to toe. But let's see here. We got our first one in. So for Jarrod, we hear a lot about buyer burnout from the sheer volume of digital outreach. How do new school methods, which they rely on reaching out to saturated platforms, how are we able to avoid contributing to this fatigue and actually stand out as a welcome signal instead of more noise? Great question, Claire.
I think just because it's different and it's a pattern interrupt due to the sheer fact that people aren't sending video messages. Because remember, on LinkedIn, I could blast out to using Sales Navigator. I could send text message. I could send a text-based message out to everyone. I think if you focus more on a video-based message, which means you're doing individual connections to people who are your ideal clients, that's what's going to increase your response rate and your success. And I think it's also not going to make the individual who's receiving it feel like, oh my gosh, this is another sales pitch, because they'd have read a lot of things. Now they get an opportunity to listen to someone. And again, because you're speaking and you're adding value to them from the get-go, it brings a little bit more value versus the actual sales pitch.
Very good. Very good. And I think that's a great answer, Claire. I hope that answered for you. Would love to position this one for you, Ari. So if a company suddenly faced budget cuts, this is a great question, and they needed to generate pipeline as efficiently as possible with that minimum OpEx spend that would be associated to that, which approach delivers a better short-term return, the higher volume, lower tech old school method, or the higher personalization, higher tool, new school strategy?
So that's really interesting, because we look at 20, 30 years ago, the old school method was very much not tech enabled, and there was a lower barrier of entry. All you needed was a phone to pick up and a phone book to just start dialing through people and to have conversations. Nowadays, in order to do cold calling more effectively, it needs to be more tech enabled than it previously was, because we know that pickup rates are a little bit lower, and that you need to build lists through data providers, have accurate data in order to call them. So doing things in the old school method does tend to be higher up on the OpEx than the new school strategy as of right now. With the new school strategy, all you need is a LinkedIn profile, set it up the right way, which is free, and to be able to connect and have a place that you could send a video message, which is either a cell phone or a webcam, in order to effectively do that type of video outreach. And I believe that the barrier to entry is lower.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think, Shan, to your question, I think the one of the things is the benefit of what Ari was just saying. You can use actually both at the same time. So a lot of our clients, where they'll start is they get themselves a list building technology, not super prohibitive and expensive, right? And can get themselves a dialer where they can start doing that, so they can put some of that operational expenditure towards that. And then they can do the high effort personalized outreach on LinkedIn at a very nominal cost. So if I were in a situation where I needed to generate pipeline as fast as possible, I think the only right answer is that you do both. You make sure that you have good data so you can do that outreach. You can try and get those quick wins, because sometimes you call somebody on the phone. They say, this is fantastic. Can you meet in 30 minutes? Let's get going. And you can actually get really quick to win in some situations there, putting some onus on your sales process. but you can also do some of the free things that are associated with social to be able to make sure you get out there and you can stand above some of your peers. So if you're really trying to generate pipeline, I think you have to do both.
And I think the first question you should ask with regards to that is, it goes back to deciding which technology or which platform you use. It's where can I get access to my customers the easiest? Like, and again, because it all depends on who the user is. It all depends on who the ICP is. So I would still say cost effective wise, because of technology, even though they're power dialers and all these other things, I would honestly say if budget cuts come into play, I would honestly tell a team, hit the phones.
Yeah, like, and I think, and that's wonderful, and I'm happy that you're comfortable to share that, Dave, Jarrod, because I think that there's a lot in that. And I think the last thing too is let's also not forget about what Jarrod mentioned earlier, which we all know as salespeople is the most important channel if you can do it, which is in person. And in some situations, getting in person in your local community, going to some different startup groups, going and joining some communities that have your ICP sitting in them already, buying a $20 ticket and going and showing up for the evening and sticking around and meeting people. Don't forget that is an important channel. Many of us live in big cities where we can find our customers in our backyard. And sometimes we can forget thinking that it's only social, only calling, only email. You can get in person too. And in many situations, a walk is free. And so you can use that yourself and get in person as well, I think, which is really, really important. Crystal asked a great question here, says, my customers' inboxes are overloaded. They've got several gatekeepers. How do you think about the gatekeeper component in this, recognizing that there's a lot of really busy CEOs out there that don't even check their inboxes anymore? And especially when they're upstream, they've either got a digital EA or somebody in person, or they've got filters and things like that. Or to Crystal's point, maybe they've got 1,000 messages in there. Is there a way that you can think about lowering that noise and that clutter and also engaging that gatekeeper?
I have a way of A/B split test. I think we have a split test in different ways. I think 50% of CEOs and C-level execs actually manage their LinkedIn on their own, but the other half actually, again, the executive assistant does it. If I know it's the executive assistant I need to go through, this may sound crazy, I would actually send my message for the digital assistant. Even though I'm sending it to Ari, and Ari is the CEO of X and Y Inc., I'm going to say, like, if I do my research, I'm going to say, hey, Sean, I just wanted to reach out to you here because I wanted to get some time on Ari's calendar. I think we really have something important that we could provide some value with, and it's because of this pain I see you guys experiencing. So I would literally send a message like that because I know for a fact that you are the one managing it. And I think that would catch them, that would get them off guard, and they might actually pay attention to the message.
Yeah, that's a great
point. I completely agree. The only difference is I would call them. No, I'm.
Yeah, you're correct.
All candor. I wouldn't send them a message. I would literally pick up the phone and call them. The one big miss that a lot of people have when dealing with gatekeepers is they treat them like second-class citizens. And if you call them on the phone and it's like, "Hey, John, you're the EA or you're the person who's in charge of so and such's calendar, right?" Yeah, perfect. Actually, I wanted to call to speak with you. I know you manage their calendar, and I have something really valuable that I want to talk to them about. What would be the best way to get on this person's calendar? It's like, perfect, thank you. Now, are these messages just going to spam? Like, be honest with me. Like, I genuinely think this is valuable for them. What do I need to do in order to earn some time on their calendar? Please let me know, and I'm more than happy to accommodate and work with you to get that done.
I think that's such a great point. And I think so many people get lost in the fact that we use these terms like gatekeeper and they seem like they're this barrier. But the reality is creating a relationship with them could be the greatest strength. And so often when we reach out to organizations and we get a message back from the EA, we treat that like they are as close to that decision maker as they really are. You got to think as a CEO, a CXO, or somebody, I would say, important enough or busy enough that you have to have somebody help organize you. You entrust them with your entire day. You entrust them with getting you the right information and organizing you effectively. And in some situations, asking the CEO how they organize themselves, they turn around and say, ask my EA because I don't even know. And it's really important for you to create a relationship there. And talking about what Jarrod talks about a lot, standing out, there's a really good opportunity to do that.
EAs add them on LinkedIn.
Add them on
Add the
LinkedIn.
executive assistant on LinkedIn and build the relationship from there. But
Yes.
can I answer Elliot's
Yes.
question as well?
Yeah.
Because Elliot is asking, I think, a question that's important for everyone. How
Sure.
do you build your personal brand on LinkedIn? Elliot, it's really simple. It's consistency. The thing I would tell you is, and this is where I see a lot of companies get it wrong. Do not talk about your company, talk about the problem. Lead with the problem first. Remember, people only care about you when they realize that you understand what's impacting them. Then they would ask, who is Elliot? Who does Elliot work for? If you create everything like it's a pitch, then that's a problem. And you might think, how does that work in your personal brand? Trust me. Like, my theory is this: if you create content consistently for 90 days, you would understand what your personal brand is eventually. You'll realize there's something that's consistent that you do. And it could be the way you say things, or you could have a tagline that you start using. It could be your glasses, it could be a beard, it could be the fact that you only wear polos. It's such simple
Could be that you wear yellow.
It works. So I think that's what you need to focus on. And I think it all stems behind creating that content, because you get to do twofold, which is you build your brand and you're also educating your buyers.
That's such a great point. And I think the big takeaway here is get started. You know,
Yes.
a lot of people, they want to go watch hundreds of hours of YouTube videos before they do this, before they do that. You can only learn so much in sales from a classroom. You've really got to take it and put it in practice. And Jarrod, that point you made, I think, is so impactful to me personally. For a long time, I had a lot of great ideas, a lot of things I wanted to share, a lot of things people gave me validation on that were strong and I should take to my audience. But I didn't know how to do that. I was also really, I'm a perfectionist. So for me, when I look at people that put out amazing content, to go, how can I rival that content? Well, the reality is the way that that person got to making really high content was they started learning what is their voice, what is their message, how do people receive them? And once they started getting started, the big thing that they learned was how they could grow from there. That happens in cold calling, happens in emailing, happens in social. Get started, try it, dip your toes, and you're going to not only learn how you reach out the best and what your method is, because I think we all have superpowers ourselves personally, but you're also going to learn a lot about your audience if you're using all of these different methods to get in front of them, in person, in social, through the phone, through email. So the real answer is here. The best way to get the most out of your prospecting, your outreach, is combine that old school approach with that new school opportunity. Put them together, start trying and learning. And from there, your playbooks will start to identify themselves. You just have to document them. And your skills will also start to identify themselves. And you can start figuring out where you can push the most value. Because I know in many organizations, there would be 3 reps sitting across the table, one who crushes it in email, one who crushes it on the phone, one who crushes it on social media, all hitting similar targets. And the best thing you can do is let those people grow together and through each other's experience and double down on the value that they're creating in their audiences. So guys, I think you did an absolutely amazing job today.
Wait, Zach, are you saying this is a draw? Your final message sounds like this is a draw, and I think we need a winner. Okay? No, I'm just kidding.
So if you're going to give me the keys to the kingdom on who the winner is, do you really want to do that, Jarrod?
I know it's biased. Yeah, that's true.
Come on, my friend. But no, this was wonderful, and I love hearing your guys' thoughts. You did an excellent job walking through this. I know we have some stuff for our audience. Jarrod, do you want to quickly kick us off before, if you have anything that you would like to say to anybody or anything that you'd like to push them to?
I'm incredibly weird. So I never have offers. What I always tell people is that I create content every single day, and all of my content is inspired by great people like you. Every time you ask me a question, I create content off of it. So follow if you find the content is valuable. If it is that you see me, if it is that you would like me to talk specifically about a topic, I would create the video specifically for you, because that's honestly how I do it. Like, I always believe that when people want to buy, it's at their own time, and that honestly makes the sale a lot better. So for me, if you follow, you get value. Eventually, at some point, I know it for a fact, you become a customer. So I just appreciate you taking time out your day to look at the content, engage in the content, share it to people. But more importantly, you take action from it so that it adds more value to you. Because my goal is, I want sales reps to be rich. Sales is too easy these days with all the complications. We need to do some of the core things. We need to do some of the modern things so that we can make our commission pockets as fat as possible.
I love that. And I think that's a great message out to everybody. And to further on that, at Foundations, we believe in leading with value. That's something super important. And we give everybody that came to this call a very unique opportunity to join us on a path that we've been preparing for many years now. Some of you may be familiar with Alex Hermosi and his experience around using school to build great communities and share awesome knowledge with different people, partners, leaders, and mind sharers. And I think as sales learners, we're always looking to stay on top of those things. And everybody that joined us today is going to get the opportunity for a lifetime membership to join our new school community, where we're not only building a great community, but we're also offering one-to-one value, coaching, training, enablement that you can take back and you can use at your teams. Other people, this is going to be a cost to them on a monthly recurring basis. But because we're launching this over the course of today and tomorrow, everybody that's joined us on this call, and of course, our amazing partners at Whistle that we're so thankful for putting this on for, are all going to have access to join us there. And the last component is for those of you that do join, we actually are going to have a bit of a raffle and draw where you're going to have an opportunity to get one-to-one coaching over the course of the next 2 months between Ari and myself, where you can come with a direct problem, personal, professional, whatever, where we're going to sit down and we're going to help you get on the other side of that, whatever that it is, in the best way that we can. And we're going to offer that to one of the great lucky people that are going to join our community with that lifetime access. So thank you, everybody. Jarrod, absolutely wonderful riffing with you on this. Ari, thank you so much for the attention to detail you brought today and your challenger approach to handling some of Jarrod's great points. And I was very privileged to be a part of this and be able to operate between these two maestros. So, and lastly, everybody, we would not be here without Whistle. So I just want to call them out and thank them, to both Kayla and the rest of the team. Claire, Amy, you're the best. We appreciate you so much. And we hope to see you next time. Have an awesome rest of your day, guys. And thank you so much for joining us. Cheers.